I'm Olek Novak, this is Chasing Cars, and this is Cupra's oldest model currently available in Australia, the Cupra Ateca. Now globally it's been around since about 2016. Not only that, but it's also not going to be coming back for another generation. So why are we actually doing a video about the Cupra Ateca? Well, there is good reason for that. Firstly, it's still alive and kicking in Cupra's lineup in Australia, and it's going to be around in Australia until at least the end of 2025. Not only that, but until now, the Cupra Ateca has only been available in Australia in one specification, the extra hot and spicy VZX grade. But now we have this. This is the Cupra Ateca V. So it's a new entry grade model that is launched in Australia, and it's dropped the entry price to the Cupra Ateca range by more than $10,000. So you can get this for just under 50K drive away. Now, we're interested in checking it out as a result, but Cupra as a brand, it positions itself as more of the sexy Spanish cousin of the Volkswagen group. So a bit more sensuous, emotive styling, not only that, but a sportier drive experience. So what we want to find out today is, does the new Cupra Ateca V cut the mustard as the entry grade model in the Cupra Ateca lineup and deliver that sportier, spicier drive experience as compared to something like a Skoda Karoq? Does it deliver on those two fronts? We're going to do that today, but before we do, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell below, and give us a follow on TikTok and Instagram too. Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car.
Brought to you by
Budget Direct.
Now, under $50,000 drive away for this SUV does certainly seem like a compelling price, and that is a drive away offer that's going to be around until at least the end of the year. Now, this isn't the first time that Cupra has launched a V entry-level model variant. So there's also the Formentor V and also the Leon V. I haven't driven the Formentor V, but a big fan of the Leon V. In fact, I think that might be my pick of the range. So interested to see if that is the same experience with the Cupra Ateca in V grade. Now, we mentioned that Cupras are a bit more emotive, and I guess that counts for the design language as well. We would have seen a lot of designs coming out of Cupra at the moment, like the Terramar and the Tavascan, which have a much more flowing, curvaceous kind of design. So does the Ateca live up to what we expect from Cupra in terms of its styling? Look, it is certainly that more old school design language compared to the new ones. It's a bit more upright as well, a bit boxier. To my eyes at least, I reckon it's dated quite gracefully. I think it's quite simple, it's elegant. I like the look of this thing. It's not shouty, but I reckon it has a quiet kind of dignified handsomeness to it. Still quite nicely aggressive at the front. So tick from me, let us know in the comment section down below if you think it looks good. But crucially, because you are paying less for this model, what are you missing out on by not going for the VZX? Well, I guess the first thing to note is visually, you miss out on a few things, but I don't think it's that much that you're missing out on. I don't think you're going to look at this model and be like, oh, I wish I got the VZX. One thing you are missing out on though is the copper accented wheels. So we've got more silver accents on this one on the V model. You also don't get quad exhausts up the back of the vehicle as well. And not only that, but you don't get dynamic chassis control as well, although you can option that with a tech pack. But another thing that you aren't getting when you are going for the V is you are not getting a more powerful engine. So we've got a detuned version of Volkswagen Group's EA888 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine for the Cupra Ateca V. So it's less powerful. It's the same power unit that you'll find in the Leon V and the Formentor V. So you're missing out on a few things, but crucially, does it still deliver the drive that we would expect from a Cupra? Does it deliver that spicier drive experience, which is really what you want with a Cupra? Well, we're going to go for a drive to find out, but before we do that, we're going to check out the interior. Now, my review assessment of the interior of the Ateca V could go one of two ways, because on one hand, yes, you can tell that the car dates back to 2016 because it's got a more traditional layout, but at the same time, I think a lot of people might actually really appreciate that, because you get in and it's just a car, an old school car, but still has some tech, which is good, but everything is where you expect it to be. So let's start off. Firstly, you've got a really nice Cupra steering wheel here in front of you. That definitely is a nice addition to the cabin ambience. Then you've got a lot of tangible kind of buttons as well. So the climate controls, super old school. You've got some knobs, dials, buttons there, really easy to function. You've got a traditional old school gear selector over here as well, which is actually really nice. So it's funny that these things are now novel, but a lot of people I think will actually appreciate getting into this vehicle and it being quite traditional. Other people might get into it and be like, you know what, it's a bit outdated. For me, I actually quite like it. Secondly, ergonomically, it's quite good. The seating position is really good. The visibility is really good. The seats are comfy. There's lots of adjustment. I've got 3 memory settings here for the driver's seat. So again, it's quite well spec'd. And the fact that it's traditional doesn't mean that it misses out on a lot of tech. You've got a nice digital instrument cluster in front of you. It looks good. Lots of configurability to how you display the information. So I like that. Then you've got the digital media touchscreen here as well, which works pretty well, does the job. So you can't complain in that regard. Another thing that's good about the cabin is that it feels really solidly well screwed together. The build quality feels really decent in the Cupra Ateca. So that is another good thing in this cabin. Now, it is the V, it is the base model variant, so you are missing out on a few things. For example, you get dual zone climate control, which is still good, instead of tri-zone climate control of the VZX. Not only that, but I guess the most crucial thing is you get black leather interior instead of blue leather interior. You also don't get the Beats premium audio system, nor a 360 camera. And I think the camera, the reverse camera on this car, the quality isn't the best from what I've briefly seen today. But that's not to say it's poverty spec, because at the same time, you still get a lot of tech. You get wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. You've got a wireless charging pad over here as well. So you've got all the kind of main things that you do need. And hopping into from the VZX today into the V, I didn't feel like I was jumping down a grade significantly. Yes, you could tell, but I don't think it is so jarring as to justify you must spec up to the VZX. Of course, if you are getting the V, but you do want a few extra niceties, you can get the tech pack. So that's going to add the dynamic chassis control. It's going to add a 360 camera, and it's also going to add the Beats audio system for just under $3,000 as well. But really, I don't think it's too bad for what it is. But at the same time, Cupra, a lot of the new designs, they've got that more flowing, curvaceous, kind of cool out there designs. You don't get that in this car. Kind of like the exterior, it is more traditional, it is more functional, it is more square, it is maybe a bit more boring, for want of a better word, compared to some of the new Cupra designs. So if that's what you're after, that is a consideration point. It's not going to be the most glitzy, glamorous, emotive interior, but it's functional, it's well built, everything's screwed together well, it's easy to use, you've got the decent amount of tech, but really it's about the drive experience. So before we do that, let's check out the rear seats. Cupra is supposed to be driver's cars, but rear seats are important as well in a SUV. And in terms of the rear seat experience, I'm sitting behind my own driving position now at 183 centimeters. This is actually, like, legroom is pretty decent. The seats are quite comfy, so that's good. And the headroom is decent too. Underfoot room is good as well. So overall pretty good. You've got a transmission tunnel here, so that's a consideration point, but overall not too bad. It's while it is quite a dark interior, because you've got the windows here on the side as well, it's actually quite light. The visibility is quite good, so that's not too bad. Then in terms of amenities, you've got a fold down center armrest with cup holders over here. You've got a little cubby like that, a ski port that opens like so, as per a lot of other Volkswagen Group vehicles. Not only that, but you've got map pockets behind either of the front seats, which is good. You've got rear air vents over here. You've got 2 USB-C connections, so not too bad in the back, although some hard and scratchy plastics here, so you can see that they've started to cut a few costs to bring down the price, but otherwise not too bad. Let's check out the boot. All right, let's check out the boot space on the Cupra Ateca V. Crucially, even though it is an entry grade model, you still get an electric power tailgate. So that is great. You've got 485 litres of boot space, so it's decent. You've also got a spare wheel, so that is a good thing as well. But the real test is really going to be, this is a Cupra, we're not going to focus on the practicality. We know what this vehicle is like. It's been out for many years, but how does the V drive? So let's find out. All right, so how does the Ateca V drive? Well, we've predominantly, as you can see, we've been driving it as part of our launch drive on country roads in New South Wales, which has been good. So to properly stretch its legs, well, as much as we can on a launch program drive like this. And overall, the Ateca V, it's impressed me in terms of my initial kind of first impressions. So I guess let's start with the steering. That feels sharp and direct, nicely progressive. It's light, but it's good. So that is a good element of the vehicle. Then you've got the ride and handling, which I think overall delivers a really nice balance too. So overall, I think the body control on the Cupra Ateca V feels quite good based on my initial impression. I think that it just has this feeling of being quite light on its feet and darty and agile. And it's quite fun to punt around through a set of corners like that. It gives you pretty decent confidence as well. The grip seems pretty good. So overall, it feels like quite a fun SUV to punt around in that regard. As part of that ride handling balance, the ride seems pretty good too. Now, I wouldn't describe it as overly plush or anything. Maybe it's leaning a bit more toward the firmish side, or maybe I'd describe it as taut, because it feels like quite a taut, well-sorted vehicle, but I wouldn't describe it as uncomfortable at all. While we've been driving on a lot of really bad roads today, we've felt bumps, but I think the edge has been taken out of them pretty well. That's my initial impression, is that this is a well riding vehicle that's not uncomfortable. It's got that sportier edge to it, but it's got a nice balance, is what I kind of feel on this initial drive. In terms of the power delivery, that feels pretty good. So obviously you've got 140 kilowatts, 320 Newton meters, so not as potent as the VZX. Are you missing out? Well, obviously it's not going to be as fast. So the VZX has a quoted 0 to 100 time of 4.9 seconds, I believe, whereas the V is around that 7 second, just above 7 second mark. So it's not quite as potent, but at the same time, it feels pretty good. I feel it's got enough power for most people, and I think as part of the overall package of what feels like a fun drive experience, I don't think you're lacking in that regard. It feels pretty nicely mated to the 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission, which seems to do a good job. It seems pretty intuitive in its shifting, pretty fast shifting. Of course, at the same time, for my drive, I've predominantly been in sport mode a lot and then shifting myself with the paddles just to increase that engagement, take control, make it a bit more fun. And I think maybe Cupra drivers might be doing that a bit more. Of course you don't, you can leave it in comfort mode, let the automatic do the shifting for you, but I think that's been quite fun as part of this experience, and it does seem to do a pretty good job. The grip seems pretty good as well. And one other thing to note is that because we're in the base standard V, we don't have dynamic chassis control with this vehicle that you get in the VZX and that you can option with the tech package. So I haven't driven a V with that option, so I can't comment on whether that is something that that definitely makes the experience better. But what I can say is that in the base standard V that I'm driving now, I don't feel lacking, is my current impression of the vehicle. So if it was a completely unoptioned vehicle, I don't think you'd necessarily be missing out. But obviously I haven't driven the V with the dynamic chassis control. In terms of safety features, the V comes standard with a whole suite of safety systems. They haven't felt overzealous or intrusive as part of this launch drive, so that's been quite good. I've used the travel assist feature, which is essentially kind of makes the adaptive cruise control and the lane center assist features work together to keep you in your lane. And on the highway, getting to our launch drive location, that felt pretty good too. So I think overall, in terms of my first impressions, they're pretty solid. I think the bare bones of this vehicle in terms of the engineering and the chassis is quite good regardless of the specification you get, which is why I think the drive experience in the V has been positive here, because it seems to be a pretty fun vehicle to drive. So maybe a similar story to what we've experienced in the Cupra Leon V, which is a vehicle that we're quite fond of. So overall, solid first drive impressions. For under 50K, you still seem to be getting a decently spec'd SUV. Yes, it is slightly dated, but in terms of that drive experience, it does seem to deliver at least some of that Cupra spice, or at least a bit of a warm SUV that's quite fun to punt around. So what about in terms of running costs for the Cupra Ateca? Well, it requires a minimum 95 octane fuel. The claimed fuel consumption figure is 7.1 litres per 100 kilometres for the Cupra Ateca. It's covered by Cupra's 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and we've got service costs and service intervals displayed on screen right now as well. So those are my initial thoughts on the Cupra Ateca V. Yes, it is a bit old school. It is a bit dated in some ways, for example, the interior, although I think a lot of people will actually appreciate what it offers in terms of just a car experience, in terms of that old world traditional experience. But crucially, I reckon the best thing about this vehicle, at least on my first initial impressions as part of this launch drive, is that it is fun to drive. It does seem to deliver that Cupra experience, what you expect for an engaging drive experience from a bit of a warm and spicy SUV. So initial impressions are good. Obviously, we look forward to getting this car into the garage for a bit longer. But in the meantime, we'd love to know what you have to think about the Cupra Ateca V. Would you go for this instead of a VZX? What do you reckon the sweet spot in the range is? Do you reckon you'd be longing for more power as you were getting in the VZX, and of course those copper accents as well? Or would you be looking elsewhere in the Volkswagen Group family? It's something like a Karoq? Or would you be looking outside the Volkswagen Group family altogether? Let us know in the comment section down below what you think. But in the meantime, make sure to hit like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, give us a follow on TikTok and Instagram too. And as always, thank you for watching Chasing Cars.